Today we've got a packed lineup of topics you won't want to miss. All right, we got some awesome Helldivers 2 news, and this time, it's all about the SEAF soldiers. So, ever since the big Heart of Democracy update dropped on May 20th, the community has been going wild. We got a battlefield shift to Super Earth, those squid-looking Illuminate enemies showed up again, and yeah, SEAF soldiers, AI-powered backup troops that are actually helpful and not just cannon fodder. And here's the fun part. Players don't want to let them go, like, at all. There's a Reddit post that blew up, with people begging Arrowhead, please, let us keep the SEAF troops even after the assault ends. And honestly, I'm with them. These guys are cool. They follow orders. They're decently tough, and they give that perfect chaotic energy that feels like Halo Marines meets Starship Troopers. One user put it perfectly. They are the guard, our soldiers, everyone needs a squad in the squad. Couldn't have said it better. And it doesn't stop there. Some players are even dreaming bigger. They're saying, yo, what if the SEAF troops could ride FRVs, fast recon vehicles? Just imagine a little truck barreling through bugs with a full SEAF squad on it, heavy MG on top, chef's kiss. Even cooler, some players want SEAF to become a stratagem, so you could call them in mid-mission like you would a turret or airstrike. Short cooldown, deployable anytime, give them a little shout and they're ready to go. Honestly, that would go so hard. Yeah, they're a little goofy, kinda slow to react, but once you get a good group together, they'll wreck hordes for you. Bottom line, this is one of the best additions in the game right now, and the community loves them. Arrowhead, if you're listening, please make SEAF permanent. We don't care if they're clunky. We just want our boys in blue to stick around. Alright, so plot twist. Hellblade 2 is officially coming to PlayStation 5 this summer. Yeah, let that sink in for a sec. This was supposed to be a major Xbox exclusive. It launched just last year on Series and PC. But now, just over a year later, it's headed to Sony's console. And honestly, this is becoming a pattern. This isn't just about Hellblade. Microsoft's letting a whole bunch of their games go cross-platform. We're talking Forza Horizon 5, Age of Empires 2, Definitive Edition, Age of Mythology, Retold, Indiana Jones, and The Great Circle, Doom, The Dark Ages, Oblivion Remaster, and yup, Gears of War Remastered hits PS5 in August. Microsoft is literally sending their classics and new releases to PlayStation, one by one. And the reason? It's part of something called Project Latitude, a shift in strategy where Xbox isn't just a box anymore. It's a platform. And platforms go where the players are. Now, if you're wondering, wait, wasn't the original Hellblade a PlayStation game? You're kinda right. Hellblade was a timed exclusive on PS4 back in 2017 before it eventually hit Xbox. So in a way, Hellblade's kinda coming home. But Hellblade 2 was fully published under Xbox Game Studios. So yeah, this move says a lot. And get this, Halo, Gears, and Flight Simulator are also being considered for PS5 and even Nintendo Switch 2. According to Tom Warren, Microsoft is just getting started. So what do you think? Is Xbox making a smart move, or are they slowly turning into a third-party publisher? Alright, so we need to talk about Ghost of Yotë. And I'm not gonna lie, this one might stir up some drama. Because here's the thing, Ghost of Tsushima gave us a hero who broke the rules for the greater good. Jin Sakai ditched the samurai code, used fear, shadows, and stealth, and it worked. But it wasn't just about winning, it was about saving his people. He took the weight of dishonor on his shoulders because he believed the outcome, protecting Tsushima Island, was worth the cost. In a way, Ghost of Tsushima turned that idea of rebellion and secrecy into something noble. Jin wasn't just a killer in the dark, he was a symbol, a legend, a force for good. But here comes Ghost of Yotë, and this sequel. It might flip everything we thought we knew about being the Ghost. This time, we're playing as Atsu, and unlike Jin, she's not fighting to protect a nation. She's not doing it for her people or for some higher cause. She's doing it for revenge. Her home was destroyed, her family killed, and now she's taking on the Ghost mantle to get even. Now look, revenge is a powerful motivator, but let's be real, it's not the same as justice. And the way this game is shaping up, it feels like Ghost of Yotë isn't just giving us a darker story. It might actually be questioning everything Jin stood for. Because if the Ghost identity becomes something anyone can use, regardless of intent, then what does it even mean anymore? What happens when it's no longer a symbol of hope, but a tool for personal vengeance? And maybe that's the point. Maybe Sucker Punch is deliberately showing us the other side of the coin, the side where the Ghost isn't a noble hero, but a dangerous myth, a mask that hides not just dishonor, but cruelty, rage, and trauma. Of course, there's still a chance this is a redemption story. Atsu might evolve. Maybe she starts off wanting blood, but eventually finds a bigger reason to fight. Maybe she'll carry the Ghost mantle with honor, just like Jin did in the end. But what if she doesn't? What if Ghost of Yotë ends with that mask shattered? What if it shows us that the Ghost persona can corrupt just as much as it can inspire? That would be a bold bold move. And honestly, it might just be what the series needs to keep things fresh. Ghost of Tsushima gave us a legend, but Ghost of Yotë, it might give us a warning. Let me know what you think. Do you want Atsu to follow in Jin's footsteps? Or are you ready for the ghost to get a little messy? Alright, so I've been seeing a lot of people bashing the PS5 Pro, saying there's no real improvement, no reason to upgrade, blah blah blah. But let me be real with you. Out of my small but mighty 14,000 subscribers, I've got at least 8,000 who would definitely say otherwise. So if you're wondering what the PS5 Pro can actually do, this is it. Here are 5 games that don't just run better, they shine. Returnal is the first one. Already a visual feast on the regular PS5, but the Pro patch takes it even further, running at 2.5 times the pixel count without tanking performance. It's sharper, smoother, and the world of Atropos feels even more atmospheric when you're not just surviving, but soaking in the detail. And yeah, I know you're mostly dodging projectiles, but still, when you do take a second to breathe, the difference hits. Next, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's be honest, the performance mode on base PS5 was kind of blurry. Now on PS5 Pro, thanks to Sony's PSSR upscaling tech, you're getting actual 4K at 60 frames per second. No compromise. Exploring Costa del Sol, the Gold Saucer, or just running around Midgar, it all looks insanely clean now. It's like switching from a nice TV to a high-end OLED. You feel it. And then we've got Stellar Blade. This game was already graphically impressive, but on PS5 Pro, it's next level. Enhanced textures, smoother frame pacing, sharper image quality, and better shadows across the board. The PS5 Pro really unlocks its full visual identity, especially during fast-paced combat or in detailed city zones. Now let's talk about Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This one's a showpiece for the PS5 already, but on the Pro, it gets even better. You've got higher fidelity ray tracing across all modes now, even in performance mode. The reflections, the lighting, the detail on buildings as you swing through New York at high speed, it's just buttery smooth and insanely sharp. You're getting better frame pacing too, which means fewer stutters when things get hectic. This is the version where the world feels alive and stable, all at once. And finally, Assassin's Creed Shadows. This game is a perfect match for the PS5 Pro's power. Ubisoft's really going in with ray-traced global illumination, giving you rich, dynamic lighting that brings feudal Japan to life. On the Pro, you're also getting a big upgrade in resolution and frame rate, which makes every stealth kill, sword clash, and cinematic moment feel more fluid and grounded. And yeah, hair physics are noticeably better too. Whether you're watching Yasuke's braids shift as he moves, or Naoi's hair whipping through the wind during parkour, it's all smoother and more realistic on the Pro. Combined with sharper textures and better shadows, it just looks and feels next-gen in all the right ways. This is exactly the kind of open-world game that benefits from extra horsepower, and the PS5 Pro delivers. Alright, so, Marathon is not looking good right now. This game was supposed to be Bungie's big comeback in the PvP space, a reboot of a legendary name. But after everything that's happened, honestly, it might not even launch this year. Let's break it down. First, there was the art theft mess. Turns out some of Marathon's promo art was directly copied from an indie artist named Anti-Real. Bungie admitted it, apologized, and said they'd review all assets. But the damage? Already done. Then we heard reports that morale at Bungie is in free fall. Multiple devs have come forward saying the leadership on Marathon has been toxic, humiliating to work with, and straight up ignored early warnings about the game's PvP-only focus. And now, it gets worse. Sony has reportedly canceled all paid marketing for Marathon. That's right, no ads, no big promo push, nothing. This info comes from Colin Moriarty, who said it on the latest Sacred Symbols Plus podcast. According to his source, this is coming from a key overseas market and is considered very unusual for a game this high profile. That's not something you just do if everything's going according to plan. We also know that Bungie already pushed back their pre-order campaign and scrapped the big open beta for a series of smaller public playtests. Combine that with the canceled marketing, and yeah, it's looking more and more like a delay is coming. The original release date was September 23rd, but at this point, pushing forward with that date might make things even worse. The game isn't ready, the dev team's clearly struggling, and the public trust already shaky. To be fair, nothing has been officially confirmed. Sony and Bungie haven't said anything publicly about a delay, but between the art scandal, the messy alpha, low morale, and now no marketing, it's not hard to read the writing on the wall. What do you think? Should Bungie delay Marathon and try to fix it? Or is it too late to salvage the hype? Let me know in the comments. Alright, so let's talk about Qualcomm. And yeah, there's a bit of a gap forming. Qualcomm just confirmed what a lot of us were already picking up on. The Snapdragon X2 chip, probably not coming until mid-2026. That's a full 2-year gap between the original X Elite and the next-gen platform. And in the world of CPUs, 2 years is forever. But Qualcomm's not panicking. Their Snapdragon boss, Alex Katuzian, literally said, "I'm not worried about our competitors." Bro, are you sure? So here's where we're at. The first Snapdragon X chips hit laptops in mid-2024. They showed promise, especially on Windows Copilot Plus machines. But since then, Intel's launched new Meteor Lake, Apple dropped the M4, AMD's pushing Ryzen AI. Everyone's iterating, except Qualcomm. Now, Katuzian's defense is that this isn't weird. He said it's a TikTok cycle, kind of like old school iPhones. You launch a big upgrade, then wait 2 years to follow it up. And yeah, that's fine if the market slows down with you. But right now, the market is sprinting. Qualcomm is still launching laptops like the HP OmniBook 5, sure, but these are running chips that are 5 to 11 months old, which in silicon years might as well be prehistoric. So what does Qualcomm do in the meantime? They're pointing to the Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii this September. They say we'll see the next-gen platform there. Maybe that's when we get a glimpse of the X2, and they're hoping that's enough to hold momentum into 2026. But here's the problem. If you're a regular gamer, creator, or even just a power user, are you gonna wait 2 years? Or are you gonna grab something from AMD, Intel, or Apple that's fresh right now? The Snapdragon X launch was exciting. It felt like a genuine disruptor. But if X2 doesn't land hard, fast, and with real performance gains, Qualcomm might go from next big thing to what could have been. So let's talk about Nvidia and the RTX 5060, because what just happened? That was shady as hell.
4090 performance at 549.
Nvidia's undermining all the DLSS and MFG content by doing this, and I'm certain that for many of our peers, just like for us, they looked at the technologies. That's the Nvidia bike going by. They're trying to make sure you can't hear me. Many of our peers probably looked at the technologies because they were genuinely interested in it, but you still have to look at it and wonder what was going on behind the scenes, and was it the same as it was for us? And again, this is a problem for Nvidia, and I'm not sure they even thought about it that way, which is a big issue. So, for example, I spoke with Hardware Unboxed. I know Hardware Unboxed genuinely wanted to cover the MFG and DLSS technology, and their intentions were good. Hardware Unboxed, though, is interesting and will come up later because they got a talk similar to the one we just got years and years ago for similar editorial direction standpoint on reviews. But the problem that emerges is now every reviewer is looking at this video going, oh fuck, I have to now justify that I actually talked about this stuff because I wanted to, not because Nvidia told me to. So it creates this cascade of issues.
So, the RTX 5060 launched at $299 this week, and instead of letting reviewers just do their thing, Nvidia tried to control the story, like full-on PR micromanaging. First, they dropped the card while most reviewers were away at Computex, not even home to test it properly. Then, they held back the drivers. Yup, the actual drivers needed to run the card, and they didn't release them until launch day.
And then there's the fact that its own drivers are currently so fucked up beyond all recognition, or the FUBAR drivers as I call them, that even enabling MFG or DLSS in some games with some settings causes them to crash or the system to shut down. So it's already physically impossible to do all the tests that we do in that time and yet add more, and then it doesn't even work sometimes anyway, which would mean we take other things out, which Nvidia would also be mad about.
Which meant most reviewers literally couldn't review it in time, unless they played along. Some reviewers, Gamers Nexus, Digital Foundry, Hardware Unboxed, they said Nvidia only gave early access if you followed strict rules. You could only test 5 specific games, only at 1080p, and only compare it to older cards like the 3060 or 2060 Super. You know, the ones the new card would obviously beat. That's not a review. That's just marketing. It gets worse. Gamers Nexus said Nvidia threatened to cut them off, like no more tech access, unless they agreed to show the new frame generation feature. That's the fake frames stuff. And yeah, they say they have the phone call recordings, because Nvidia recorded it too. Now that the real reviews are out, let's look at what this card actually does. It barely beats the RTX 3060 Ti from 4 years ago. It loses to the 3070, and it even struggles against Intel's $250 Arc V580 in some games. And that new DLSS 4 tech, it helps, but only when you run the game at 720p, upscaled with fake frames, and pair the card with a $600 AMD CPU.
It's the manipulation that's the problem of it. It's the threat. that's handing over people like us when it has these conversations. If Nvidia wants to cut off its nose to spite its face, they can do that by disallowing further well-received, highly reviewed, neutral to positive technical interviews with their engineers. But if Nvidia instead is going to threaten us on the fulcrum of a particular type of coverage, then we believe that starts to become a form of extortion. And we think that Nvidia made a calculated play here, where Nvidia realized if it takes away access to cards, it doesn't do a whole lot. Taking away access to money doesn't do anything because they don't give us money. But what if it takes away access to the things that generate money through separate channels, like just through YouTube AdSense? Maybe that'll work. That's how I felt receiving these messages.
Which makes 0 sense for a budget GPU. The big picture, Nvidia's making bank off AI right now. Gaming barely matters to them anymore. But instead of being honest, they chose to mess with reviewers, twist the message, and basically gaslight gamers. So maybe this is the wake-up call. Maybe it's time to look harder at AMD and Intel and stop treating Nvidia like they're the only option.
I don't give a fuck what Nvidia does for any of that, because we're going to continue on just the same. I would love to bring you all engineering content and interviews and let them tell their story in a way that's educational and actually useful for people. If Nvidia doesn't want to be a part of that, that's fine. They can fuck off and do whatever they want, and we'll keep doing our thing.
Alright, so here's a game that's starting to make serious noise. Arc Raiders. And yeah, it might be about to put Marathon to shame. Players just wrapped up the closed alpha, and the reaction? Pretty much everyone said the same thing. This feels ready. Like sure, there were some balance issues, but visually, mechanically, it felt like a full-on release version, not some early-stage test build. And now, there's something even juicier. Players started digging into the game files after the alpha ended, and they found a tick counter tied to the .exe file. The counter ends on June 6th, which just happens to be the start of Summer Game Fest. Coincidence? Probably not. Let me remind you, this is the same studio, Embark, that dropped the finals as a surprise release during the Game Awards last year. 1 second, it's on stage. The next, it's live and playable. A full-on shadow drop. And while the finals had an open beta first, Arc Raiders didn't. But here's the thing, it didn't need one. The closed alpha already felt polished enough, and player numbers actually went up every single day of the test. Now stack that against Marathon, Bungie's own extraction shooter that's currently getting dragged for using stolen art assets and still feels like it's a year away from being done. Meanwhile, Arc Raiders has no drama, no scandals, and an actual working alpha that feels ready to go. Put all that together, a done alpha, a secret June 6th date in the game files, Embark's history of shadow drops at Keighley events. Yeah, it's very likely that Arc Raiders is launching at Summer Game Fest. If there's any concern, it's the usual shadow drop problem. Everyone jumps in at once, servers explode, login queues get crazy. That's what happened with the finals, but hopefully Embark learned from it. So if you've been sleeping on this one, you might want to clear your calendar for June 6th. Don't get your hopes up for a PlayStation handheld dropping anytime soon. Yeah, the rumors are back, but the timeline, not what some folks were hoping for. According to a known insider on NeoGAF, goes by Heisenberg FX4, Sony is working on a new handheld, but they're saying it's not dropping until around the PlayStation 6 launch. So we're talking maybe 2027 or 2028. That's a long wait. This isn't about the PlayStation Portal either. This is supposedly a full-blown PlayStation handheld, not just a remote play device. Something that could potentially run PlayStation 4 games natively and stream PlayStation 5 games. Basically, the kind of machine people thought the Portal was going to be. Now yeah, Bloomberg did report last year that Sony might be using the Portal as a kind of test run, something to build off of for a more powerful device. And with the Switch 2 dropping in June, and Xbox also rumored to be working on a portable, it's clear that the next wave of console wars might go mobile. But the key takeaway here is timing. This isn't happening soon. If Sony's aiming to launch it with the PS6, or just after, then we're still at least 2 to 3 years out. So yeah, it's exciting. But if you were dreaming about a PS5 powered handheld in the near future, might be time to chill. The future of PlayStation is getting more portable, just not as fast as some people hoped. If you want to be ahead of all the gaming leaks and news, specifically PlayStation news, time for you to subscribe. And as always, a like on the video is very much appreciated.